Lesson 7, the draw loop. This lesson introduces the draw loop, which allows animation, which allows your characters, your sprites that you've created to go ahead and move and change on the screen. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll skip the videos here, but you can watch them on your own. And the first one here, we've got an example of the draw loop. So we've got function draw, and then anything in here inside of it is just going to be repeated over and over again. So if we run it, we see these green ellipses are just being repeated over and over again. So we've got ellipses from the x position of a random number from 0 to 400, and the y position is a random number from 0 to 400. And as we see up here, the fill color is sea green for those ellipses. So we've just got ellipses that are just repeating at random x and y positions. So next, it just talks a little bit more about the draw loops and adding shapes. We'll just skip that for now and work on the exercises. So now on this one, we want to add to the program so that the drawing has orange circles as well. So we see here, this was the original one on the last lesson. We've got the draw function, it's filling it with green, and the ellipse is having an x position of a random number between 0 and 400 and a y position of a random number between 0 and 400. So what we'll want to do is we'll want to add another ellipse as well, which is going to be orange. So let's go ahead and change the color to orange after our first ellipse is drawn. And then we can go ahead and draw a second ellipse. And we can go over to math, grab our random number, and the x position and the y position should have a random number between 0 and 400. Same thing over here, 0 to 400. Now I've got a couple extra spots for width and height. As long as I don't change them, it'll just keep the default one. So I'm going to back up a little bit to get rid of those width and height properties. So let's go ahead and run it. And it's working out just like in the example over here. Okay, for the next section, wants us to see what's going to happen and write our prediction of what we think will happen. So we've got no stroke here, which means whatever shape it's drawing doesn't have an outline. The background is going to be blue, the fill color is going to be yellow. And then it goes in the function draw, it draws a background of red, and then it draws an ellipse from a random number from 0 to 400 for the x position and random from 0 to 400 to the y. So because these two are being repeated over and over again, it should show up with always a red background, and then a new ellipse should be drawn with the color yellow. So let's try it. A red background with random yellow ellipse will be drawn. That's what's happening. So every time it sets the background to red, and then it puts the ellipse in a random location. Okay, now the next lesson will help us to animate our characters. This animation has been slowed down, and so let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. So we've got world frame rate is set to 10. It says it's slowed it down. Usually the frame rate is at 30, so they slowed it down so it's not moving too fast. But we've got a variable called sprite, and it's creating the sprite at 100, 200 position. It's setting the animation to this green alien here, and then it's using the draw function. Remember, everything in the draw function repeats over and over again. So it's drawing changing the background to orange, drawing it, and then it's going and it's putting the sprite or this alien's x position at a random number between 200 and 220. So it's just jumping back and forth, and then it draws the sprite. So it draws the background, sets the sprite position, and then draws the sprite, and it does it over and over again. So we can change the frame rate and run the code again and see what happens. Let's change it to 5. Let's see how slow that is. a lot slower. Okay, we can put it back up to 30, which is the default, and that's way faster. Here's some more information about sprite properties. You can set the sprite's X position, its Y position, its rotation, its scale, and whether or not it's visible by using the variable name, dot, and then whichever value your property you're using there. So let's go ahead and continue on. On this one, we've got a pencil moving back and forth, and then we've got a paintbrush that is supposed to be moving back and forth, but right now it's sitting still. So what's happening is the sprite's X position is changing on this, and the sprite X position is staying still on this one. So after we ran the program, we need to edit the code to make sure the second sprite shakes like the first one, and then as long as it's looking like this, we can continue. So let's go to our draw function. In our draw function, it's drawing the background, then it's setting the pencil X to a random number between 100 and 110. Then it's taking the brush X and it's putting it at 300. And then it's drawing them both. So every time the brush stays at the same position, but the pencil takes a random number for its X position between 100 and 110. So let's go ahead and make the paintbrush move as well. So brush.x equals random number from 300 to 310. So let's just have it move 10 pixels just like the pencil is moving 10 pixels. And it's working on both of them. Then we can hit finish and move to the next one. In this one, we've got a salt shaker that's moving up and down. To do this, we'll need to add to the draw loop, or add the draw loop. So the draw loop is not there yet, so we'll put it in. And then we'll need to decide what goes inside the draw loop. So we probably need our background, because our background needs to be drawn, and then we need our sprites to be in there as well. So let's have our sprites in there as well. Now, one more thing we need to do is we need to update the location of this salt shaker every time it runs through that draw function. So we've got this line of code here, salt.y equals random number between 200 and 220. So we've set the background, we've set a random y position for the salt between 200 and 220, and then we draw it. So each time it should draw the background, draw the salt shaker in a new random location for the y, and then it should draw it. So there it goes. A couple more left. On exercise 11, we're going to update some properties. In this one, the animation is already updating the one alien's rotation. So this is rotating back and forth to make it look like it's shaking. We've ran the program. Now we can add code to the program to make the other aliens shake just like the first. So we want both aliens to do a little dance there, and that's by changing their rotation. So if we look down and find our draw function, which all the repeating code is going into, we've got the background that's drawn, and then we have an ellipse that's drawn, which is the little star that pops up every time that it runs through the draw loop. And that's showing up in a random location here for X and Y. And it's got a width and a height of 5 pixels. Then we've got the green alien rotation is changing from a random between -5 and 5. So it's rotating back and forth between -5 and 5 pixels. So then we need to do the same for the red alien. So if we go to sprites, go to sprite.rotation, and we change this to, oh, I guess it's pink alien. Pink alien.rotation equals, and you can do the same thing, random number from -5 to 5. Now I can go to the math and drag it over here, or if I would like to, I could type it in. It would do the same thing, random number. Just make sure you pay attention to the case and all of the parentheses and everything in there as well. So random number between -5 and 5, and let's run it and see if it worked. Yep, they're both rotating just a little bit. Okay, the last step is to update the draw loop to our program. So in the last lesson, we created this little happy birthday card for the bunnies. So we're going to go ahead and add the draw loop to it. So we go to function draw, and we decide, so I have a lot more code than you probably do, but that's okay. We decide what needs to go inside of the draw loop. So I've got, I need most of my code in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show the text. And I am going to copy this and make my life a little bit easier. So I want my text in there. I want all my shapes in there to show up each time so they don't disappear. Okay, but I just don't want my variables to be repeated. So I've got my background that needs to be in there as well, so I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to paste those into my draw function. I'm going to go back to my blocks. I'm going to draw sprites. Okay, so if I did that correctly, okay, everything's still showing like it was. Now I need to decide what code I want to update as far as my sprites. X position, its Y position, if I want them to move back and forth, if I want them to rotate, if I want their scale to change, if I want them to grow and shrink. So let's go ahead and just change a couple things. So let's say, let's go here in your sprites, you can change some things. So let's pretend like they're jumping up and down. So we're going to say before draw sprites, I want to say sprite.y equals, and I can do a random number. So before I was drawing the bunnies at, what were the positions? I was drawing them at a y position of 300. So what I could do is sprite.y equals, and I could do a random number, and 300 was what I had before, so I can say 300 to 310, showing that they're just kind of jumping up and down, and one of mine was named Thunder. I'm going to go ahead and switch to show text and make it easier for me to copy and paste with Control C to copy, or Command C on a Mac, then Control V to paste. So I could do, I've got a couple different bunnies there, so I'm just going to actually copy these and then paste some more and then keep changing my sprite names. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 different ones. So I've got Thunder, Mellow, and then I have Baby 1, Baby 2, and these are just the names that I had created for my sprites when I created my variables. Baby 3, Baby 4, Baby 5. So looks like I need 1, 2, got 2, that's Baby 3s. Need a Baby 6 in there too. Okay, so if I show my blocks again, if I did this correctly, they should be hopping up and down. All right, that might be a little too fast. So if we got the world dot frame rate, let's change that. World dot frame rate equals, let's try 10, like they changed earlier in the lesson. There we go. That's not too crazy. And that is it for lesson 7.